Welcome back to Cool Range Chess, guys, and today we're going to be focused on how to play positional chess properly and how can positional chess help you improve your ratings. Tactics, I know everyone likes tactics. Everyone likes to watch Mikhail Tal plays chess. Everybody likes to watch. Everybody likes to watch sacrifices. He sacrificed the rook, as Gotham Chess would say. But we all should know how to play positional chess because tactics is fireworks of your games. But positional chess is what can get you from 1400 rated to 2000 euro. And here I'm going to look at the position. This position here on the board, black just last played a move and it's white. But if you're black here, who would you say is winning in this position? Look at the position. You might say white is better. Who you say is better? But what is positional chess? Positional chess breaks down into weak squares, good and bad pieces, and pawn structure, right? So you look at black's position. Black has an isolated pawn and good and bad pieces. You say all of white pieces developed, while black still hasn't developed your light square bishop as yet, right? But let's continue to see what happens in the game. So you have to make a plan here. And a plan here, a good plan here, is a good and a middle-term plan you have to make here. Not really a short-term plan, but let's see what happens in the game. What happens in the game that white captures the knight on f6. Obviously, white wants to remove the defender of the d5 pawn, one of the defenders of the d5 pawn, and trade in his bishop. Now, black is stuck with the pair of bishops, if you want to see. Right? Black captures back. Obviously, you do not want to damage your pawn structure. That doesn't really do anything for you. But you captures back with the queen. White plays pawn to e3. Obviously, kicking away that black knight and sending that black. But what do you want here? So you have to say this. If I play my knight back, what's going to happen is white is going to win the pawn at d5. So white captures the knight. Bishop on d3. What could happen is that white could probably play knight times d5, but maybe that won't work properly because of maybe queen to d8, and after white captures back on d3, then maybe bishop to e6 will probably win the knight back. Yes, you don't want to play that move, so white captures on d3, and now black has to come up with an idea here. Black can't protect this pawn. White has too many attackers right now on that pawn. Can't protect it. So why should we protect it? We have to get our pieces in the game as better. So you can say to them, have the material, because what is most important is in a positional chess is all the pieces mobility in the game. You need the pieces to be better than your opponent's pieces to obviously stop them from winning. So what was played? Black played bishop to g4, putting pressure on the knight on f3. White continues capturing the pawn. Now on d5, now he's putting pressure on the b7 pawn and on the bishop on c5. But this is not good for white. Black continues with b6. Now backpedaling your pieces is not usually the best idea. You don't want to bring back your pieces, right? So what did white play here? You want to activate all your pieces. These two bishops are doing good. They're good. Queen is active in the game. This rook is on half rook file. But this is the only piece in black's position that is not doing anything. So black needs to get back pieces in the game. So what did black do? Black played rook 8 to d8, putting pressure on the queen and looking to secure up the knight on d2. Right. And white played knight d to f3. Very good. This is a tactical move. Because why? Why is it so important? If you take the queen here on d5, white will take your queen on f6 and it comes with this important check. And after you take back, white will take your rook and white will just be up an exchange. And that is just bad. You don't want to be losing the game like that. So simply moving your queen, still keeping pressure on the knight. That this white queen cannot just simply move anywhere. You have to keep pressure on that piece, right? So white plays his queen to c4. White plays the queen to c4, playing the queen to c4 here, still protecting the knight, because once the queen moves, you will just win both knights for the rook, and that would be 2 pieces for a rook is better for the opponent who's getting the 2 minor pieces. So black continued with bishop to f8. Maybe blacks just want bishop to f8 is not the best move here, but positionally these 2 rooks aren't doing too much in the position, and black is possibly open more lines to get his rooks, like on these files, on the C file and D file respectively, instead of the E and D file. So let's continue. White plays king to h1. King to h1 is such a weird. I think the reason why king h1 was played is because maybe white doesn't want black to play any type of f3, and he wants to move his king off the same line as the queen. So all of these are just probably natural moves for opponent. You could have just simply just move back your knight to g3 if you wanted to. But now here comes the main ideas. Pawn to b5. You're still trying to kick away one of the defenders of the knight on e4, which is the queen. Queen plays to c7, and you can't capture now because now you'll leave the rook undefended. Bishop to f5, attacking the knight. Knight to g3, bishop to d6, and now queen to b6. Now here's the crucial moment in this game. The queen is on the same line as the black queen, right? Here you have to look to yourself and make a long-term plan here. The long-term plan is very, very simple. You're going to go into an endgame where your rooks are going to be better than these 2 rooks, and you're going to have the better piece than the better minor piece than white's minor piece. So black captures on g3, and positionally we're looking on all of these. You're just outplaying, slowly but surely outplaying your opponent here. White now has to capture on g6, bishop captures, pawn captures on g3. No, you look at white's pawn structure. Remember, we was talking about pawn structures and weak squares, and they have a double pawn. Yes, it's not that weak as yet, but you have to look at it. Now, your rook is going to get the D file, right, on the second rank, right, to put pressure on this pawn on b2. This knight is not that strong. It doesn't really have many forward squares to go. See, doesn't have many forward squares to go. Only can go backwards. And once black plays rook to d2, none of white's rook can come to b1 to protect the pawn because of that strong bishop. We talk about strong pieces in the game as well. Always speaking about our strong pieces in the game. White played rook, trying to trade. No, you just won back your pawn. No, you're no longer down the pawn. You didn't even remember that you were down the pawn, right? Rook to d6, putting pressure on the a6 pawn. No, but you just simply play rook to b3, forking the knight and the pawn. Knight there, don't matter, you capture the pawn. Playing the rook to the open file. Now knight captures here. But the main thing is that we know that the rooks on the 7th or the second rank are just brilliant for you to have, right? And you have a pass pawn as well. Pawns are equal, but you have a pass pawn. That's the most important thing. Now you have to protect your pass pawn. That's one leverage that you want to have, right? Continue. Now, white is trying to sacrifice the pawn at e3 to get your pass pawn off the board, because that pass pawn is a real nuisance for white. But you do not want to trade your pass pawn just like that. Rook down to doubling up your rooks and putting pressure on this pawn on g2. How does he protect that pawn on g2? By making his pieces worse and worse. You're slowly outplaying your opponent, and that's how chess is won at the higher level. Yes, tactics are brilliant to have, and you can see tactics from a mile away, but when you slowly and you crush your opponent, it just gives them a feeling of they're just helpless, and they feel like to themselves that they're the one that's on top, but they're not on top. You're just slowly but slowly crushing your opponent in this position. And crushing your opponent, you will continue rush them. You will have them feeling like this.
Help me!
Right?
Help!
So continue. White continues with rook to g1, bishop to d3, putting extra protection on the pawn, trying to get the pawn up the board to continuously push the pawn up the board, but you can't right now. You don't need to rush it. Knight to b8, pawn to b4, pushing your pawn, knight to d7. Maybe the knight wants to come here to to c5, pawn to b6, pawn to b3, knight to e5, bishop to e2, pawn to e4. Now here's where we look for tactics in the game, right? You have to say to yourself, if I can capture here, and tactics always come in these order: checks, captures, and threats, right? And looking for the capture here, meaning that if the pawn captures, you can play rook to h2, which would be checkmate. See how how easily you can spot tactics when you have such a dominant and superior position. But the knight is there. The pesky knight is there, right? So you have to play a threat. Pawn to f6, kicking away the knight, so the knight to go away. Knight moves. Now comes bishop times c3. Why can I capture, and why pawn structure is getting worse and worse? I know you're up a pawn in this position, and these double pawns are just nasty. And this isolated pawn is just waiting to be captured. And he can't. Why can't I push the pawn straight away? Because they'll be losing their knight. So I played knight forking the bishop and the rook. You played bishop times check. Why can I capture? Because you capture, and this is just a winning game for you. So why would not play that? Check and move the king here. I know you have to say to yourself, what is the winning move here in position? So we go rook to attack the knight on d2, meaning that once the knight moves, you're setting up a checkmate pattern. So white plays rook times on d3, meaning that they want you to capture, and after knight captures, you play probably rook here, and probably capture your bishop, and then you capture their knight. You capture the knight on b3, and they go into this black being up a pawn, but this will still be winning a rook endgame. But maybe they can hold a position a bit better than the other position. But no, this is just for checkmate. Bishop to c3, delivering check, meaning that they block with the rook, you just capture check, and this is just game over. The only way to delay checkmate here is just playing knight to e2 first, rook captures check, rook to g2, rook captures check, and once the king goes to h1, you can capture the rook, and then you play rook to b1 checkmate. No, it won't be stalemate. And if they play king to h3, you just simply play rook to h2, deliver check. So king to h3, rook to g2, and that's all she wrote, folks. So this is how positionally you can dominate your opponent in the games, right? And you have to take your positional chess with these three important things: weak squares, good and bad pieces, and final one, pawn structure. Those are the ways to plan your way in your positional games. And at the start, you will think that black is losing his, black is down a pawn, but black keep on improving his pieces and also getting white's pawn structures worse. And because his piece was so much more active, black end up winning the game positionally and slowly outclassing his opponent. Thank you for watching, guys. Continue to follow, subscribe, and like for more.